Hey there, Arachnids, it's me, Dr. D. And I got myself quite the little gift here that I'm going to show you guys. I was gifted by the benevolent Firelock their new models that are coming out for their Kickstarter coming up in early 2026. I don't usually like to time my videos, but as of the time of recording, it is currently early November. So if things change, don't hold me to it, please. Or do, I guess. I don't know. It's up to you. But anyway, I'm going to show you some of the new models. I'm going to show you how they compare to the old versions of those said same models, and we can do some speculation. Isn't that going to be fun? But yeah, I'll show you guys the new models, and I'll paint them up and show you what they look like with some paint on them. Isn't that fun? All right, I'll see you at the painting desk. Welcome to the Dr. D painting desk. If this is your first time here, welcome. If it is a place you have frequented before, also welcome. We are here to talk about the new English models that are coming out for the Jamaica book that are going to be supposedly coming out early next year, 2026. I am a known English player, so they, thankfully for me, reached out and asked me if I would like to show off the models and do some paint jobs and all that to make some people happy. And how could I say no? Now, the one thing that I was told when this was all happening was that some of these models are going to be changed in regards to things like how big certain aspects of the models are. They're not completely done, so if you look at these and it seems like something might be a little too big or too small, these are, of course, subject to change. But it's cool to kind of see their thought process and how these things are going to come around. So these are going to be the new Freebooters, which, because this book is going to be taking place in the early, I believe, 16, it's like 1640 to 1650, 1660, something like that, when England was starting to make some plays on the Spanish Main. A lot of stuff is going to be happening around the Jamaican island. So of course, a lot of this is going to be based on Buccaneer stuff because they can't exactly send their armed military in a place where everybody's going to die of malaria. But you could have a bunch of private citizens who have boats and guns. Nothing wrong with that. Anyway, these are the new freebooters, and I was also lucky enough to be given the new Forlorn Hope, which, as far as I understand, will also double as the French version. I forget how you say their name. It's like Les Infantes Intante or something. That's excellent research on my part, but I don't play French yet, so I'm sorry. But these are also going to be the equivalent models for them as well. So we're gonna do a little show for these for you, and then I'm gonna compare them to the old versions. And then after this is all said and done, at the tail end of this video, I will show you one of them painted up, just to show you what they can look like with a little bit of paint slapped on them. Okay, so first we're gonna go over the Freebooters. Obviously, there's a variety of poses here. Like many of the other models that have been previewed, I think that they are much more dynamic looking as Firelock slowly figure out ways to make their models more interesting and all that. I will point out a few of the little, I guess you could say, oddities. Again, as I said earlier in the video, these are going to be subject to change, and I imagine a lot of these are going to at least get altered in some way or another. But you'll notice that on this one, he's got a little bit of a hunchback. Not a big deal, but something I noticed while I was doing it. And something that I have consistently seen in their new models, and again, I have no doubt in my mind that this is going to get changed in some form or another. A lot of them have very tiny feet. And by very tiny, I just mean they're not quite proportionate, and there's a little bit of vent, a little bit of not cured resin going on the model. But again, that's not anybody's fault. That's just a part of the process. But I'm really a big fan of this sculpt. It's a cool model. I do think that many people are going to have the same issue I did with the long barrel of this gun, in that it's going to be bend. It's going to bend, especially in the molding process when it gets sent to you. So you're going to use a little bit of heat to get that to straighten out, but it shouldn't be a big deal. Easy fix. But I do think that because of the way the Buccaneer guns, since they're so long, I do think that's a bit of an inevitability. I can speak English, I swear. And you can't have a Buccaneer without one that's very excited to be wearing a hat, waving a gun around. This is something that you haven't necessarily seen in their sculpts a lot as of yet, at least that I can remember, where they have these guns like braced up against other parts of the body. I do think that's an interesting way to add stability to their attachment to the base while also adding a little bit of visual interest. Something you'll also notice that a lot of their other models, this is definitely something that I've noticed they've been getting better at in the Firelock world, is their clothes have a lot more folds in them, which makes them a lot more visually distinct. And I'll even show you on the older version of these models just how much more like folds you'll notice in these things. It might just be a me thing. But I noticed it. I figured I would at least bring it out. And again, this guy has very, very big hands. I have no doubt in my mind that that is something that is going to be changed in some form or another. And he, again, his feet are like not quite right, but they're pretty close. This guy's feet are pretty close. I like this sculpt. This is a good one. This is also a sculpt that seems very, very similar to the new pirate captain that was in the Port Royal box, while also being similar to the Speak Like a Pirate sale event, I guess, if you want to call it the Toyota-thon, or whatever you want to call that. But you can definitely tell some of the faces are similar in that regard, so they're using some of the same assets, just altering them as they go, which is great for sculpting because it helps keep things, cheaper, I should say. And here's another one. Again, Freebooter. A lot of folds in the pants here. All of them have that distinct Freebooter extra, like, padded cuff thing that the other Freebooter models are known for having. So it's good that they're at least keeping things visually consistent. His feet, pretty close. I think his feet are probably the closest that we've at least seen so far to being pretty accurate. This one's pretty close to being done. I can tell, like, the hands are appropriately sized. This one looks great. Really, 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 really happy with this one. And a couple of them, and I say a couple of them, a lot of them have the little ponytails coming out of the back of their headwear. But this one looks really, really good. 10 out of 10. No notes on this one. And then we got the man who sees something off in the distance here and wants to give it a little screaming Mimi just to put it out of its misery. Again, feet, little bit tiny, but again, I expect that to be changed when it comes out. He also, his head might be a little bit too tiny, but the sculpt itself is really, really good. Big fan of this. He also doesn't have the Freebooter jacket thing because he's got regular cuffs and all that. This guy's just wearing a shirt because it's probably hot in the Caribbean, especially down there in Jamaica. But great sculpt. Really big fan. And again, I think I had to use a little bit of heat on this pistol just because it's probably going to bend a little bit in the venting process. Okay, as said, we're going to do a little bit of a comparison. This is one of the old Freebooter models. Again, you got to have at least one where he's holding out his gun, shooting something off in the distance. Come back here. I'd say you were done. So this is probably the most comparable of those two models. As you can see, as far as scale goes, the new ones might be a tiny bit bigger, which is not a huge deal. Obviously, humans are a variety of shapes and sizes. But they're pretty close. I don't think anybody would actually notice. You can definitely see a little bit of an increased bulk on the new ones. That might be subject to change. Their clothes might just be a little bit more baggy. That might be a period relevant thing. I actually am not entirely sure. But as you can see, they do fit in pretty well. Or at least this one does. Which he looks pretty good. Big fan of that. And then there you go. There's another of the old Freebooters compared to the next of kin, shall we say. As far as height-wise, again, pretty comparable. This one's a little bit smaller. A little variety is not going to be a bad thing for sure. I think it's going to add at least some kind of visual variety that the brain might recognize, even though if our eyes don't, it'll just kind of make it look a little bit more realistic. And as something I was saying with the folds, as you can see, the new models have a lot more folds in the clothing. Like even on this leg here, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, like separate little parts of the pants themselves. While with the new ones, or I'm sorry, with the old ones, you can see they didn't have quite that many folds in them. And that's not a bad thing. I think it's just a good clue that Firelock are getting even better at the sculpting process. So I think that's pretty exciting, in my own opinion. All right, so let's start taking a look at the Forlorn Hope. Okay, Forlorn Hope number 1. One thing I did notice is this guy has a sick beard. I'm a big fan. As someone who, has his own facial hair. It's the one thing I can be proud of in this world, is having great facial hair. And so the one thing that I did notice with this one is, again, a lot more folds in the clothing. And the pants look great. There's going to be a lot of really good opportunities for color transitions in here for people who really want to spend the time doing that kind of stuff. Again, gun looks really good. Very consistent with the rest of the range. Feet might be, again, a little tiny bit short, but not a big deal. That one I wouldn't even notice if I hadn't really been paying attention to it. And other than that, this one definitely passes all my tests. I think this one's an absolutely great one. And then the next one, again, can't have a model without having a guy pointing his gun off into the distance. This one, reaching for either his sword or a reload for his gun. Really cool pose. Again, great facial hair. He's got an awesome, fancy handlebar mustache looking thing there. Lots of fold in the clothing. Again, great bit of detail there on the shoulder for somebody who wants to take the time to really just get into the folds there. And the feet on this guy, I think, are perfect. I'm sorry I have such a weird foot fixation on these guys. It's just something that I noticed, and I was like, I want to make sure I bring this up just so people see it. But other than that, very consistent with the rest of the range. Big fan. I call this guy the guy going for the 7-10 split on bowling. He's got himself a explosive in his left hand because the Forlorn Hope and the French version, which I can't remember the name of, Les Infentes or whatever, they have access to explosives, which is one of the aspects that people bring the unit for when they do bring it. It's great axe there, great boarding axe. Again, rifle looks great, very consistent. Didn't have to do much work on this one, just nice and good. Didn't have to heat it up or anything. Got his bag full of boom boom. And he's got I believe that is a black powder flask. That, or it could be like a mana potion if you wanted to go the more fantasy route. Other than that, though, they look great. No notes on this one. So here's this one. This one is probably my favorite out of the new Forlorn Hope models. I just really like that gun over the shoulder thing. I like casual disregard for danger. What can I say? It really makes my models feel brave. This guy, ton of folds in the clothing. Again, one of the best parts. The guys are decked in guns. They got brace of pistols. Again, that's another hallmark of that unit. I usually mix these guys up with my Freebooters anyway, just because there's obviously a very distinct consistency among the look of them. And if you're really looking for a way to beef up your Freebooter units without necessarily buying the same models over and over again, I think these guys would fit in pretty well. You just got to make sure you're aware that Freebooters do not have brace of pistols. Big fan. So when we compare them to the old versions, so there is one of the old ones put up in comparison to it. Again, height and scale pretty accurate. And again, if you just look at the clothing fairly quickly, you will see that the detail in the new ones are significantly more pronounced, I guess might be a good word for it. With the folds and all that stuff, it definitely fits the new process, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. They look great. I will say that I think the old rifles are definitely a little bit bigger. They might work that out in the scaling. Again, I don't think it's anything that anybody would actually notice, but it would be, bad for me to not to mention. And again, another of the old ones compared to the new ones. Scale-wise, pretty good. And big fan. So yeah, my closing thoughts before we actually give these guys some paint. I think they look great. Big fan of them. Really do appreciate Firelock sending them to me in the first place. I'm gonna paint up one of each, just to get them done, so I can show you guys a little bit of comparison paint-wise between the old and the new ones. And I'll be back. I'll see you then. It's probably gonna be like 3 months. I'm just kidding. I don't paint that slow. And through the magic of movie magic, I'm back. So it took me about a week to fully finish some of these guys, and that was painting at a fairly leisurely pace, but I did finish them, and I have to say, I still really like them. I think they're really, really great models. And, of course, the paint jobs will be seen in picture form on Blood and Pigment, as I believe this article or this video will be coming out around the same time they put out that video. But to just kind of go over it, I was going to only paint one of them, but due to the factors that be, I was able to finish all 4 of the new Freebooters, but I did only finish one of the Forlorn Hope, so please forgive me. So, the new Freebooters, really, really good. Big fan. And the paint jobs, I think they attach really well. There's something I've seen being in this, I don't want to say industry, but being around and painting as many models as I have. Some models are a little more thirsty than others. But these guys did really well. I think the amount of detail on them is just perfect. Again, as I was saying in the when we were just looking at the sculpt itself, the folds and the clothing and all that, it takes paint really well. And it's really easy to get really good contrast values out of it. So big fan of that. I'm really proud of the way these guys came out. And I think that they are great models to just add to your collection. Even talking to one of the Firelock model designers, he was even saying that these guys were the models that might have had more constraints than some of the other ones, which makes me excited to see the other ones because even with constraints, I think these came out really well. So I'm excited to see the rest of it. And I will show it to you guys as I see them. And of course, just to kind of compare it to the old ones, these 2 models are obviously very comparable because they're in the same pose and all that. Again, the new ones might be a tiny bit taller, and I do think that these sculpts will be changed just slightly for their full release because, again, I think some of the parts of it are a little, I don't want to say exaggerated, but maybe the proportions are a little bit off. Like the new models, our hands are very big. And they might just keep that because it's easier to paint, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it is something that I noticed. As you can see, compared the new and the old. And I still don't know what this jacket's called. But it is on the Freebooters where they have those like studs on their jackets. Which I'm not entirely sure what that's called. So if you know what that's actually called, tell me down in the comments. I actually don't know what they're called. But yeah, great models. Big fan. And then the actual Forlorn Hope. This was my favorite one of the 4 for sure. I haven't had a chance to finish all 4 of those. But one down. It will come in the near future. You'll see them when the article for Blood and Pigment comes out. Or if you play me on the table. And they'll probably pop up in battle reports and stuff too. Big fan. Again, the folds and the clothes really, really take paint well. So if you want to take the time to really exaggerate those, and the pants as well, obviously. If you take the time to really exaggerate those, I think it's going to look really great. You get some great contrast values, and I think they will take something like speed paint really well if you do a good zenithal highlight, which I always recommend. If that's the way you want to paint, that's the way you want to paint. Ain't nothing wrong with that. And then compared to one of the old ones for the Forlorn Hope, big fan. And again, you could just see the difference in the amount of detail that you get in some of these sculpts, because you figure some of these sculpts, this one is probably significantly older. I don't know the exact time that model came out, but it's been a couple of years, let's put it that way. But even the old Forlorn Hope look absolutely phenomenal. And, again, I recommend you get these guys. I don't use Forlorn Hope all that much, but I will use these as just general ended freebooters because, again, obviously I think they blend in very well. And if you put those guys in the same unit, I don't think anyone's going to notice. Especially if you're not using the explosives. Which, obviously, one of the new Forlorn Hope models does have the actual Granado in his hand. This one right here. So, obviously, if you're going to do a Forlorn Hope unit, just make sure you have one of these guys in there just to represent somebody having the explosive. Blood and Plunder's not super WYSIWYG, but I think it's always a good idea. I don't know, kind of helps with the narrative in your brain. But there you go. Those are my thoughts on those. If you want to see me paint this kind of stuff, you can always check out the Twitch that we do most Sunday, Mondays, and Thursdays at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. We did have a couple days where we painted all of the new English, Buccaneer type stuff, but that's going to be a big focus on this next expansion. And the Kickstarter for it is, at time of recording, is hopefully going to be early next year. I'm beyond excited. I can't wait to add to my already way too big collection and impress everybody. But I hope you guys really enjoyed this. If you want more content like this, please just give me some kind of comment down below. And I hopefully will go over some of the old sculpts as well. I think that it's really important for somebody to just, kind of show you what I've seen as we go. Like, this is an English militia. This model's been around for quite a while, but I think it's one of their best sculpts. I love all 4 of the English militia models. I think they're great, but obviously they've been around for so long that, I don't know, sometimes you just kind of miss them in the background. But it's just important to know that every model in this range I think is pretty good, and hopefully we'll get to cover those. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, just leave a comment down below, and thank you very much for listening to this. You're a real champ, and I hope you keep hobbying and keep it popping.